Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Beesness. In this episode, we'll be covering headlines that caught my attention from June 2nd through the 8th. Everything from institutional news to some follow-ups on headlines that we've been keeping an eye on to sales or auctions of note. So let's go ahead and dive in with our first headlines. First things first, follow-ups from headlines that we have been keeping an eye on, things that we have noticed across this year of 2024 thus far. Within the last week, the Financial Times announced that both Sotheby's and Christie's have cut jobs in a relatively weak art market. Both of the famous auction houses are trimming their teams as the weaker market environment brings down the value of their sales this year. For example, Christie's Hong Kong sales failed to meet their estimates as lots went unsold, were pulled, or went for less than expected. And after Christie's hack, the art newspaper revealed that one of their clients based in Dallas filed a class action complaint in New York over the auction house's alleged, quote, failure to properly secure and safeguard sensitive information of its customers, end quote, during the recent data attack. Sotheby's is looking at so-called redundancies at their London offices to make sure that their business can continue to operate there. The Paris Olympic Organizing Committee has also unveiled an Olympic rings display on the Eiffel Tower. ESPN reports that the display of the iconic 5 rings on the tower marks the 50 days until the start of the Summer Games. The structure of the rings, each 9 meters or 30 feet in diameter and made of recycled French steel, will be on display on the south side of the 135-year-old landmark in central Paris overlooking the Seine River, and will be illuminated every night with 100,000 LED bulbs through the Paralympic Games that start in late August, 17 days after the Olympics closing ceremony. The famous tower will feature in the games in this way, as well as forming a backdrop for certain sports. Plus, as we talked about in our very first ever Beesness, the pieces that have been swapped out for repair over the years will be included in part in the winning medals. The French city additionally made headlines last week because graffiti referencing Ukraine began popping up across Paris while Presidents Biden and Zelensky visited town. On Friday of last week, unusual spray-painted images and messages with references to Ukraine appeared on several buildings in central Paris near the Parliament complex and various government ministries. According to ABC reports, some depicted coffins with stenciled signs in French that say, "A French soldier in Ukraine." Others include a sign that says in Ukrainian, quote, "Return the elections back to Ukrainians," end quote. This is the latest of several such unusual incidents in recent months that have French authorities a little worried as Paris prepares to be on the international stage hosting the Olympic Games so very soon, especially as the suspects behind the latest graffiti remain unknown. Earlier in the week, on Monday, 3 individuals were detained after allegedly placing 5 life-size coffins at the base of Eiffel Tower. The Russian embassy in Paris has denied any involvement by any of their citizens or affiliates. In a new development in one of the world's longest restitution cases, Turkey has joined Greece in their battle by rejecting claims that Lord Elgin had permission to take the Parthenon marbles back to Britain. A quick reminder of how they got there and who Elgin is. Crews working under him began removing all sorts of friezes and statues that once adorned the Parthenon with all sorts of highly damaging tools and a rather careless attitude in 1801. This whole process of removal took over a decade, and even at the time it was so controversial. The Guardian points out that his contemporary, Lord Byron, wrote basically a diss poem about it. The British Museum was able to acquire them from Elgin once he went bankrupt, and they've considered this all perfectly legal ever since. But significantly and recently, Zeynep Baz, the Turkish Culture Ministry's top anti-smuggling official, says that there are no signs of any permit in the Ottoman archives of this permission, in a huge blow to the British Museum's claims to their legal right to the statuary. Baz is quoted as saying, "Turkey is the country that would have the archive document pertaining to things that were sold legally at that time. Historians have for years searched the Ottoman archives and have not been able to find a firman proving that the sale was legal as it is being claimed," end quote. The announcement is celebrated by officials in Athens as a hugely important admission for their arguments. Greece has won growing support since launching their 40-year campaign to reunite the treasures, which are often seen as the high point of classical art, with other relics in Athens. Polls taken amongst the British public since the announcement have shown that the majority are in favor of returning them to Greece, where they were carved and have historically stood. Of course, a week never goes by without some announcements or discoveries, first of which, an artwork bought online for just $1,000 was identified as a long-lost Degas worth $13 million. The owner, an unnamed Barcelona-based person, spotted the pastel drawing listed as a quote-unquote fake Degas in 2021, but the masterful level of the composition made the person believe that wasn't quite true. With the help of expert Michel Schulman, the painting was determined to be the Éloge de Maquillage, or In Praise of Cosmetics, of 1876, a known brothel scene painted by Degas that had been thought to be missing for several decades. Although bidding for the work began at simply €1 or $1, in large part because the previous owner in Catalonia did not believe that it could be a genuine Degas despite it being signed as such, the provenance documents show that it had been bought in 1940 by the man's ancestor, who was a collector and former president of the local Banco Sabadell. The story is now hitting U.S. headlines after it came to light in the EU when the painting was presented to the public at the Institut Français in Madrid. A team of experts concluded in July 2023 that it was a Degas, quote, after an exhaustive analysis of pigments, a meticulous study carried out with x-rays and photographs, among other techniques, end quote. Some experts suggest that this impressionistic pastel work, measuring roughly 20 by 25 inches, might be worth around €7 million or $8 million, though other estimates, as I said, go as high as €12 million or $13 million, according to the Spanish news outlet El Nacional. Howard University also made headlines by officially revoking Sean Combs's, or Diddy's, honorary degree amid other moves to distance itself from the increasingly problematic and disgraced musician. The university's Board of Trustees voted unanimously on Friday to revoke that degree given to him in 2014, saying he is, quote, no longer worthy to hold the institution's highest honor, end quote. They specifically cite his behavior in recently released videos as fundamentally incompatible with their core beliefs and values. According to that same board statement, they will also return Combs's $1 million contribution on top of terminating a $1 million pledge agreement from the Sean Combs Foundation. The Washington, D.C.-based HBCU said it will disband its scholarship program in the rapper's name amid the ongoing controversy, especially as Combs has been named in 8 lawsuits since November, when singer and ex Cassie Ventura first accused him in a now settled claim of years of abuse during their relationship in 2018. The extremely publicized raids of his properties in March on sex trafficking allegations, plus the emergence of further federally investigated allegations, has left the HBCU with few other choices, frankly. Last week also unfortunately saw the death of Nani Hogrogian, age 92 and an honored illustrator of children's books. She was one of only a few two-time Caldecott Medal winners. She brought multiculturalism to children's literature by evoking her Armenian heritage in order to bring diversity and joy to her woodcuts and watercolors. We are now aware she passed from cancer in early May. Our main/only events news for today, Kendrick Lamar's The Pop-Out Ken and Friends concert in Los Angeles is now set to stream live on Amazon Music. Tickets to the June 19th show at the Kia Forum sold out almost immediately, but Amazon Music has announced that its hip-hop and R&B brand rotation will in fact live stream the concert. It will be aired live on Prime Video as well as the Amazon Music Twitch channel starting at 4 p.m. PT. Variety magazine reports that this decision was made in part to deal with the insane demand, especially because it was at a staggering high, according to social media users who reported they were in line behind 100,000 others. The magazine similarly reports that resale prices for the tickets are spanning from $350 to $1,500 for a single seat. So if you are interested in the concert, that live stream really might be your best bet. This last week had a lot of fascinating institutional and especially law-related stories. First, in the local branch of NBC News, the Rhode Island Secretary of State formally stated that a new home is needed to preserve certain endangered artworks. Secretary Greg Amore said the State House is no longer fit to be the home of not only a giant portrait of former President George Washington that's more than 200 years old and worth millions, but also other works. Amore says, quote, "It is not being preserved correctly, so you can start to see cracks in the Gilbert Stuart. You've been in that stateroom a number of times and the humidity in there is incredible," end quote. Among other reasons, its $30 million price tag is cause for its conservation, the secretary says. In the article, he essentially announced his aims to get $10 million towards a state archives building, noting that Rhode Island is the only one in the nation currently without one. The few artifacts that are housed outside of the state building, says WJAR News, are located in downtown Providence. The very well-respected Rhode Island School of Design's museum senior conservator, Ingrid Newman, said that the secretary's onto something. She said for the long-term preservation, if the state can afford it, moving the portrait is the best choice. As of now, funding for that new archive is not in the budget, but an initial $500,000 is available for the beginnings of site and design work. In a bit of good news from Europe, Germany has cut its taxes on artwork sales from 19% to 7%. The change is set to take effect in January of 2025 and marks a pivotal shift in their policies towards an aim of supporting galleries and art dealers throughout the nation, and it reverses the removal of tax benefits that was done 10 years ago via an EU directive. It is being celebrated as a supportive move in economically challenging times. Germany's Minister of State for Culture, Claudia Roth, in particular, noted it as, quote, an important signal for the art trade and the cultural contribution of the galleries, end quote. None celebrated the change more than the Federal Association of German Galleries and Art Dealers, which has long viewed the taxation as creating a competitive disadvantage in the general market. Headlines across Instagram hyperallergic, a variety of news outlets, and not even arts-based ones only last week. The nation was stunned by the abrupt closure announcement of the Philadelphia University of Arts, and they faced protests after the president's sudden resignation, amongst other troubling developments throughout the week. At first, the U of Arts, a nearly 150-year-old institution and huge cultural hub for the state where many names of note across the mediums found work either as teachers or even trained themselves, left more than 700 employees and over 1,100 students totally confused about their futures. Then, school employee union officials told New York Times on Tuesday that the president, Carrie Walk, resigned only a few days after her administration announced the closure because, as they said, of declining revenue and enrollment. That resignation news was especially controversial as it broke while students were actively protesting the closure on campus, holding signs with messages including, quote, "It's not noble for artists to suffer," end quote, and, quote, "We are not trash, do not throw us away," end quote. The protest had already been set after the university first made posts to social media claiming that despite its best efforts, they could not continue the school's course. And Tuesday afternoon, it sent an email to students confirming their refunds for the summer and fall semesters. The institution has faced criticism across the board for its handling of this situation. For recent graduates of the University of Arts are left to wonder about whether their degrees will continue to have value. Students and faculty members have filed class action lawsuits against the university because of the closure. The Middle States Commission on Higher Education has revoked the school's accreditation as of June 1st, telling reporters that the U of Arts, quote, "failed to inform the commission of closure in a timely manner or to properly plan for the closure," end quote. One of the most major unions representing the employees of the school wrote in a statement, in part, quote, "We are appalled," end quote, denouncing what it sees as a pattern of disregard and cruelty to the employees and students. The closure has even spurred reviews by the state Attorney General as of June 7th. The office and lawmakers at large are reviewing how this exactly happened, with a very close eye out for missing or transferred assets. The New York Times reports that officials state it remains unclear how dire the university's financial problems really are because, according to at least one report, the university trustees said they need at least $40 million to resolve the school's issues, but that number has not been repeated since. The school's very messy closure is extremely concerning, not only because it's a school closing and it was handled so poorly, but because there seems to be something larger going on in the Pennsylvania arts scene. The New York Times notes that, yes, this fallout is painfully familiar to instructors who have struggled with the closures of dozens of respected schools, not only over the last decade in the struggling world of arts education, but this is also the second major Philadelphia arts institution this year to end all of its programs. If you recall, back in January, as we reported on in the Beesness, the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts said it would also stop granting degrees after its 2025 graduating class. Says State Senator Nikki Savall, quote, "We are looking into holding a hearing and seeing what broader investigative powers we can use in the state legislative committees to investigate. But it should wake many of us up to the fragility of the arts infrastructure in Philadelphia," end quote. Last week's legal arguments mostly centered on AI. The announcement was made that Adobe is once again in trouble with the estate of an artist whose work was copied by its new AI programs and was sold at large. The estate of Ansel Adams spoke up against the use in art news because they have allegedly, repeatedly been in contradiction to AI-generated images using the photographer's name sold by Adobe. Ironically enough, Adobe's own official policy terms don't allow this type of behavior, saying that users are forbidden to upload AI-generated pictures containing any prompts that are using other artists' names or intended to copy another artist. And finally, artists in droves either threatened to or actually did leave Instagram last week over its new AI art training policies. Meta, formerly known as Facebook's, confirmation by Chief Product Officer Chris Cox at the Bloomberg Tech Summit that it trains its AI image generators using public Instagram images has upset quite a few people. The revelation was possibly the final straw for many content creators who were already frustrated by the decrease in reach that their posts have received in the last few months, as well as techniques like shadow banning and other frankly crappy user/creator experiences on a platform increasingly saturated with paid ads and direct from TikTok Reels. Cox highlighted this as the key to the next generation models of amazing quality images, noting the broad range of the data set in Instagram that covers everything from art, fashion, to personal family photos and travel images. But creators rightfully want credit and payment. Some say that they were unaware of this use and Meta did not secure their consent. Many are publishing posts and stories on Instagram to declare their ownership of the copyrights of their work and to say that they do not consent to the AI training policies. Even more maddening is the fine print on all of this basically states Instagram does not care if you do that. And I know because I tested it out on our Highbrow Honey accounts. Because of differences between laws in the EU and the USA, users in the EU do have a bit more of a chance to opt out, but it certainly isn't easy. It would be far too transparent and ethical if it were. Instead, Meta has buried the settings away under an option to request to opt out. Even if you find it, though, the process is designed in a way that seems to discourage users from using it. Meanwhile, US-based users such as myself who complete that form receive a message first saying, "Thank you for contacting us. We don't automatically fill requests. We review them consistent with your local laws." Later, I received a second email claiming that I have no case because my materials haven't been used yet. I'm sure you can tell I found that incredibly reassuring. Thankfully, these rather draconian policies are getting enough news attention that we have seen some advice worth repeating on how to beat them. First, Meta is claiming that it only uses public posts, so you can try to make your account private. But this will limit your ability to promote work, so obviously not a great deal for content creators. You can also try anti-AI tools like Nightshade, which apply various but imperceptible distortions to images to make them unusable for AI training or, in certain cases, even potentially corrupt the AI training data. Some other tech news outlets also report you can do as nearly 600,000 already have as the Meta policies have gained more and more attention. Just leave Instagram for another site and call it a day. All right, honeys, thanks for sticking this one out with me. I know it was a bit long. I appreciate you listening, and I hope you appreciated the very wide range of topics we were able to get through today. Take care, and I will talk to you Thursday for the final and 5th chapter of Art That Pisses People Off. This podcast was created, produced, written, hosted, edited, and fact-checked by Master's graduate Celia Bugno. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on all of your favorite streaming platforms as well as your social medias.